Welcome to That's Good Parenting, the podcast where we search for simple steps to reduce parenting stress. I'm your host, Dori Durbin, children's book illustrator, author, coach, ghostwriter, and podcaster. I help experts turn big ideas into kid-sized children's books that kids can actually understand and enjoy. Today's conversation fits beautifully into that mission. I'm joined by Maria Gallucci. She is a multi-award-winning broker, owner, realtor, a proud child of deaf adults, fluent ASL communicator, and the author of Raised in Silence. Maria spent her life bridging the deaf and hearing world, and that's what she's learned about listening, advocacy, emotional safety, and powerful implications for every single family. Maria, I'm so glad that you're here. Welcome.
I'm so excited. Thank you so much for having me.
Absolutely. Some of our listeners may not know you yet. And for those listeners who don't, I would love for you to share how you got into this world and a little bit about your story, because it's very unique and I think they'll love to know about it.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm Maria Gallucci, and I am the author of Raised in Silence and a real estate agent. And I've been an agent for 34 years. I'm a CODA, so both of my parents are deaf. And so ASL was my first language. And I got into real estate because I was like 12 years old, and I saw my parents going to buy their first home, and there was no interpreter there or anything. So I just stepped in and started helping them. And I just realized that I loved the real estate and finance world. And I thought to myself, okay, I'll never make anybody feel like they don't know what they're signing or anything. So that's how I jumped into real estate very young.
I think that's so fascinating because what I read anyway, was that you were 5 years old when you started to interpret for your parents. And then at 12, is that right? You went to help them with the house?
Yeah. But we were very young. We always had to interpret like at school functions and things like that. So as long as I can even remember, I was interpreting for my parents.
Yeah, so that's a lot of responsibility and understanding, like emotional understanding, situational understanding that you were having very, very early. How did that shape you and help you understand your childhood years even in a different way?
It shaped me as I listened more, and that I'm actually a teen mom. And so I think being raised in that community helped me be more, I think it grew me up fast. And so I was able to be a single teen mom to my daughter. And so I feel like that like helped transition me for being like a teen mom,
Yeah.
which is hard in the beginning, because like it's you're a teenager your own self. And so when you're a kid your own self raising a child, but because I had grown up so quickly with the deaf culture, it made me, I think, more of a mom.
Yeah, you had a passage from your book that you wanted to share.
I did, yeah. So I think this is one of my things. So I'll read a short story from the Raised in Silence book, and this is something I don't mind like unveiling because it captures the heart of my story. So I grew up in a world where silence was normal. ASL was my first language. I learned how to read facial expressions before I even learned how to read books. I became the voice for my parents long before I understood my own. But what I didn't realize was that the silence was not weakness. It was shaping me into someone who can listen deeply, lead bravely, and build bridges between two worlds. I think what's really important about the book is that it's not just about being a CODA. It's about identity, responsibility, resilience, and learning that the very thing that made you different can actually be your superpower.
I'm trying to even put myself in that position of knowing that your parents are so much different. It's not just different. The whole concept of how they experience the world
Yeah.
and communicate with you is so different than so many of us would even understand.
Yeah. And I feel like we take our hearing for granted, even our sight, like even with blind people as well. Like we take all of our senses for granted when we have them.
Do you feel like that awareness, you were talking about facial expressions and just being able to read the situation. Do you feel like that happened really early and really benefited you as you were getting older?
I do, because I can see when my parents were upset, or I can see when they were uncomfortable, or when they were sad. So because most of our expressions and our feelings are all from expressions and emotions. And so I think that it taught me to be able to listen fully and to be able to read people. So like they say, read the room. I'm very, very good at that.
Yeah. I would think too, communicating with people and really being able to see what their heart is, their motives, that would be even easier for you than it would. I always think of the awkward teenage years where communication is just so hard anyway for most teens. And then you have like kind of this extra gift, like you said, like a superpower, where you could actually read and understand and make these connections that probably a lot of people miss because they're not aware. I think it's in your book. Do you talk about deaf gain?
I do. And I think that people think that it's a loss, but it's not because they gain other senses. And for them, I think it's like a superpower. Like they're able to communicate. We're all bilingual. Like we're able to listen better, to be fully aware and be fully present. So for me, I think that it's not a negative. It's a gain because they're gaining more senses and more awareness.
So the deaf gain is you're replacing that from what people see as, you said, a deficit. You see it as a power, ability.
As a power. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Okay.
Yeah. It's not a deficit or a negative at all. It's like their superpower.
Yeah. Yeah. So, okay, what about listening is so unique and different for you that other people could kind of learn or learn from?
I think being very present and actually listening to what they're saying or what your children is saying, because I think even 5 second changes everything. Like if you're fully present, I mean, the kids are going to remember, or anyone's going to remember the tone longer than the content. And so I feel like if we're like present and listening or say emotions, like I feel overwhelmed right now, I need a minute. And I think that it teaches just empathy and making them feel like they're being heard.
Mhm. Yeah, there's a big difference, I think, and I think this is what you're saying too, between listening and hearing.
If you're
Right.
looking at your phone or if you're
Yeah.
waiting for someone at the door, if you're cooking, that's not being fully present for anybody. Just be there and listen.
I'm gonna get in trouble for this one, but I know like in my family, we have members who will be busy and they'll try to be engaged and they'll repeat one or two words that you just said. And I always feel like a little more frustrated because they can repeat the last two words, but they have no idea what it had to do with
What
like,
happened? Yeah.
right. And so even though they can recall the couple words, you want to have that emotion felt by the other person who's listening. And that's a big
And
difference.
oh yeah, and it makes a big difference with them too. Like they feel like they're being understood. They feel like they're being heard, and I think that makes a huge difference for anybody who, especially like the deaf and hard of hearing community or any community out there. I think once you feel like someone's being present for you and they're really there for you, it makes a big difference on their mind and their mental state.
Yeah, so I'm curious. So, as a children's book illustrator, I work with a lot of people when we set the stage, like this is where the story is going to take place. This is how the character is going to feel in the story, right?
Mhm.
And do you kind of find yourself doing that in realty, especially with the deaf communities who are coming in and probably a little bit more nervous about trusting people on a sale?
I agree because I feel like it's very important to make them feel comfortable. And so I've had a lot of clients who have not had an ASL agent on their prior transactions, and they said that they felt left out. They didn't understand. So when they found me and I was able to be fluent in their language and communicate without barriers, it makes a huge difference because they feel like they're included. They feel like they're seen. They feel like they're being there for them. And then the culture knows about what the needs of deaf and hard of hearing people, and even like blind people and everything. Like we know that you need, for someone who has a wheelchair, you need bigger doors and bigger hallways. And for the deaf and hard of hearing community, you need to have a big open kitchen to the dining room. Those called the deaf friendly home. So you need that to be able to communicate with other people while you're making dinner. And a lot of people actually don't know that. And that's why I made ASL Realty, which is a nationwide referral network for agents who actually speak or know ASL or know the community that can help everybody, just not in Colorado.
Yeah, that's awesome. And ASL, in case you don't know this, is American Sign Language.
Yes. Yep. Because every country has their own sign.
Oh, I did not know that.
Yeah, they do.
Really? At
Yes,
university?
that's all different. Yeah.
Oh
It's
my
not
goodness.
universal. A lot of people have that misconception, and it's actually it's all that there's I think there's 300 or something
Are
different
you kidding? I did not know
languages.
that. I had no clue.
Yeah.
So when they're signing for movies and you see the signer in the corner, they're doing probably American.
Yes, they're
Okay.
doing the American Sign Language, and then like the lady for who signed at the Super Bowl, she was actually signing in Puerto Rican.
Oh, I didn't know that either.
Yeah.
Wow, you just blew my mind, Maria.
Yeah, yeah. A lot of people don't know. They think that it's a universal sign, and it's not.
I honestly thought it was. If you're not in the community, you're not using the tools, there's no reason for you to know. But in the same vein, I feel kind of dumb because I had no idea there was any difference.
Yeah.
Well,
Another like misconception I think that people have is that all deaf and hard of hearing people can lip read, and they can't.
really?
No, I can because I was taught that growing up. And so I can see if someone's talking bad about me across the room or what they're saying. So it's a very good talent.
That's actually really dangerous. Okay, I have to ask this. This is totally off topic, but since we're on that vein anyway. So if I was a child that knew that my parents couldn't hear, it would be very tempting to tell them the things that you wanted, like manipulate situations. Did that ever happen?
And I put stories of like that in the book. Like if we got a bad grade at school or whatever, we would just tell the teacher, "Oh no, your kid was so good. Like she's always there and she's always doing stuff." So it's like we do that often, and I know that's bad, so I don't do that anymore. But as a child, you want your parents to like you and think that you're amazing.
Oh my goodness. So that made you that much more aware for your own kids.
Yeah.
Now, okay, so do your kids speak American Sign Language and can they lip read?
So my daughter, who's 34 now, she actually did know it growing up because my mom was her daycare, but my mom had passed away so young. So Jordan was only 9 years old. So she knows a little bit, and she's teaching Nova, my granddaughter. And Adrian, my son, I put him in an ASL class and thinking, oh, we got this. And this is the story is so funny, and it's actually in the book. And I'm like, we got this because I'm fluent. It's so easy. Oh my gosh, it is not. There is a huge difference between being a CODA and learning it growing up with parents because we know the slang and all that stuff. And so I helped him do like an exam, and he got an F. He's a 4.0 student, and he ended up graduating 6 months early with a 4.0. But yeah, that was his first F. He was so mad at me. It's like, really? It's like way different than I thought.
Well, the experience is different, right? You were immersed. You didn't really have a choice.
Yeah, because it was my first language, so I just knew it all. But yeah, learning is like different than being raised with it.
Yeah. Now, can either of them read lips?
No, I don't think
Okay.
they can. Yeah.
Okay. Well, that works out for you well, but
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly.
oh my goodness, that's amazing. So as a parent, then that's really interesting because I mean, being raised with parents who are deaf and then having kids who aren't, were you constantly recreating or were you using a lot of what your parents did?
I was using a lot of what my parents did, and I noticed that because we're from the East Coast, so we're from New Hampshire, and so we moved out here when we were younger. But the sign language back east is different than here, and so I sign a little words different, and so everyone always thinks it's so cute and funny because you could do favorite or favorite, and when I was growing up, was favorite, and then so I had to like retrain myself to learn some of the like either update words, and signs actually get updated throughout like time too. Like last week, like Colorado was Colorado, and now it's Colorado. So it's like things just change like throughout. But yeah, so that's what the only differences.
Wow, that's interesting.
Yeah, so there's like three, and there's a lot of different versions of words too. I always went to speech therapy, just something I've always done. But something else that I've never been able to do is a lot of CODAs actually can talk and sign at the same time, and I've never been able to. So like for me, I have to sign it and then I'll talk it, or talk it and sign it. It was just the way I was raised. We're not able to talk and sign at the same time.
That's interesting. Okay, yeah. I hope our listeners are learning as much as I am.
Yeah.
Oh, wait a second. If you're a pet parent, hang on just a second because I have an announcement for you. If your house is stuck in the please, 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 can we have a pet, please? I joined Amy Castro on the Pet Parent Hotline to break down 6 ways or 6 signs of true kid readiness for a dog or a cat. We cover emotional regulation, boundaries, responsibility, and the biggest reasons families end up stressed and surprised right after that new pet comes home. You can find it here at www.petparenthotline.com/child-ready. Okay, let's head back to the interview.
Were there other situations where it was really hard to have parents who are deaf? And especially like, I think about the emotional side of parenting. Parenting is not easy, as you know. And I think that you obviously had this amazing connection emotionally with them. I could read them. But were there times when it was really a struggle for both of you?
I have a huge heart and I have a lot of empathy for people. It might be a downfall for me because I don't have a soft heart. I think it's because I saw my parents, we as children got made fun of because we were like different. And if it's not your normal, then I think people are afraid. And so for me, watching my parents being isolated or left out or made fun of, things like that really pulled at my heartstrings because when anybody gets made fun of, to me, I think being inclusive is huge. And people don't understand making fun of somebody or making someone feel isolated does to themselves. And just one act of kindness or one kind gesture can actually save someone's life that day if they're like really down. So for me, I think it was that. It was the struggle of seeing them sad or feeling isolated or left out.
Ooh, that's so powerful. And by the way, feeling for people is not a bad thing. It just means you cry more.
Yeah, exactly. I do the whole time. I hope so bad.
So it is interesting too, though, because you talk about inclusivity. And I think you're right. I think parents often, if we don't understand something, we tend to even accidentally give this feeling of fear. And then our kids learn that they can read us enough that they can tell that it's uncomfortable, it's fearful, there's something different about this person. We have a friend who struggles and has some physical things, and I see people look and I'm like, "Ugh," you just don't always know how to respond. So from your perspective, because you have this unique perspective on both sides, being a kid and being a mom, what would you say to parents who find that their kids are fearful of what they don't understand? And it's a person, what would you?
I would tell them you don't have to be perfect, but as long as you are just trying and making an effort to either get to know them or even just a simple like hi to them and making them feel included. And you don't have to know their language at all, but if you just go up to them and make an effort, like maybe instead of staring, tell them, oh, I love your language, or give them a compliment or something like that. Just makes it puts it outside of the box and it puts their guard down and it doesn't make them feel like they are being stared at, made fun of, or isolated. So I think for me, it's just to make an effort to do a simple thing like, hi, you have a pretty dress on, or I love your shirt, or I love that sign language. Yeah.
What is a good way for a parent to model it yourself?
I've always taught Rian and Jordan to accept everybody. You never make anybody feel left out. You always include people. And if you see somebody making fun of them, jump in and defend them and protect them. Because I think that if you lead with example, if I'm being kind to everybody, if they see me giving people compliments, that's what they learn. And I think that we are the teachers of the children. So everything starts with us.
Yeah, so true. So true. So we're learning a lot here. We're learning all about American Sign Language, learning about body language. We're learning about communicating, listening, being kind and empathetic to other people. Would you say is something else from your childhood experience that if you could tell parents, hey, if you could do this one thing for your kid, what would that one thing be?
It would be being a better parent doesn't mean doing more. Like it just means becoming more aware. So I think that I would tell the child to be aware of the surroundings. And if someone's sad or someone's being made fun of. And so for me, I would teach them as a young kid to go out and make it your own mission to help people and empower other kids, because that's what makes them resilient. And I think that if there's one thing that I want parents to remember is that your awareness is more powerful than perfection. Like you do not have to have perfection at all. And when you choose connection over control, you raise children who don't just survive in the world.
Yes, I love that. Connection over control. That's beautiful. You're not going to believe this. We're almost down to our last question. Time flies. I would love to know how people can learn more about your book, how they can learn more about you and your family. So if you could give them that information, that'd be awesome.
So my book is on all the platforms, Amazon. I'm actually Amazon's number one bestseller. And so we have a website. So it's raisedinsilence.com for the book. And they can reach me at galluccihomes.com.
Perfect. Okay, so if someone is listening right now and they feel like they're constantly holding everything together for their kids, their partner, and their work, what is one simple communication practice that they can use in the middle of the hard time to just interrupt the stress before it spills over onto their kids?
I think it would be to show up. And I think that we as parents are so busy and we're always thinking of other things and thinking of the next thing. And I think even if you just take 5 minutes, my favorite time was driving him to school.
Mhm.
And so, because during that time, I was able to connect with him and I was able to talk to him. And I think that communication and being open with your kids is huge. And now to this day, I talk to both my kids every day and I see them for lunch every week. So it makes you closer to them as well.
I feel like that's great advice. It really is just to be able to be connected. And like we said before in the beginning, listening, hearing, feeling, all those things as a parent. Maria, I really appreciate your perspective. I love your story. I want the listeners to know that no parent is perfect all the time. We all have moments where we react instead of respond in the right way. So when we miss the moment, we just have to pick things up and actually just say it's okay, because then there's another day, right? So the last thing that I'm going to say is if you could say one thing that is really important to you connection wise between the deaf community and the hearing community, what would that one thing be that you really wish could be there?
Bridging the gap, because I feel like the hearing people don't know what to do if they're in that situation. So I think that if we just encourage people just to have connection, and I love hearing those conversations of somebody who can't hear in the airport and someone who was hearing noticed that they're struggling and went to help them. And I think it's all about connection and helping.
I love it. Maria, thank you so much for your time today. Again, check her out, look at her book, get her book, and we will talk next time. Thank you so much, Maria.
Thank you so much for having me.